Welcome to Whitetail Rendezvous Podcast. This is Bruce Hutchin, host and executive producer. Each week, you will hear tips, techniques, strategies, and personal stories from some of the best and funniest whitetail hunters in North America. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you do, tell a friend on social media. If not, tell me and I'll make it better. Thanks for listening, folks. I want to welcome the newest member to the QDMA family, Quality Deer Management. In the past, you've heard from Kip Adams, Lindsey Thomas, and others at QDMA, and I wanted to bring in their newest member to help him share with you just what it takes to be a QDMA regional manager. He's in charge of Regional 2, and you'll hear the exact states that takes care of. And Corey Slater is just one heck of a young man. Went to school, Kent State. Then he transferred after he met his girlfriend to Slippery Rock State in Pennsylvania, and then he decided after graduation as a teacher coach, he wanted to head to Iowa, land of the Giants. Smart move. No kids, wife. Let's move to Iowa, and they did. And that's where he met Bill Winke and spent some time with him and learned a heck of a lot from Bill Winke of Midwest Whitetails. And then moved back to Pennsylvania for family and was checking out whitetail properties. Actually saw an ad for QDMA. And as they say, the rest is history. So sit back, relax, and you're going to really enjoy Corey Slater from QDMA. Hey, folks, I'm with Corey Slater, and Corey's the newest member of QDMA, and Corey's going to tell you all about that. But he's the Region 2 director. So, Corey, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Bruce. Thanks for having me. I'm definitely very excited about being the newest member here on QDMA. I'll be covering the Region 2. I'll be the Regional 2 director, and that area covers Eastern Ohio, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Maryland, New Jersey, and Delaware. So that will be the territory that I'm in charge of, and reaching out with those local branches and helping them do their thing.
You know, I just talked to a guy in Maryland, and he was telling me some ungodly numbers about deer densities. What's up with that?
Yeah, that's a good question. In some parts of the eastern United States, the deer densities are through the deer densities are through the roof, and there's just I don't have the exact numbers for you. I mean, I am the new guy on the totem pole here, but there's some pockets that it wouldn't be uncommon for there to be over 20 deer per square mile and different things like that, where they're just so densely packed in behind neighborhoods and cul-de-sacs where gun hunters can't get in because the restrictions, and bow hunters sometimes find trouble getting permission on the properties.
Yeah, you think of that, and I heard you say Eastern Ohio and Pennsylvania and New Jersey, Maryland, Delaware, and I think West Virginia. That's pretty much suburban, land where the deer herds are. What do you think your biggest challenge is going to be for QDMA as you open up those branches?
The suburban hunting is definitely very prominent out here. Where I grew up, it's knocking on doors and getting access to small little parcels of lands behind people's houses and in and around neighborhoods at the end of cul-de-sacs. A lot of our members are that type of hunter. They don't have a big tract of land. And to do something like that, if you want to follow the QDMA practices, forming a cooperative might be the best option for them to ask the other hunters around the area, try to get the land managers to form a cooperative so that they can get on track with trying to be selective on the deer that they are harvesting out there. The small tracts of land are really valuable when you put them all together and get people on the same page working towards the same goal.
No, I've heard of cooperatives in Kentucky and Missouri when I've had other guys and gals from QDMA, and I'm sitting here going, well, a cooperative, yeah, because we got a 40 here and an 80 there and a 100 acres over here, but really we're talking less than an acre in some of this land, aren't we?
Right. Yeah. I mean, some people have less than an acre behind their house. And obviously, those people, they can be in, and they definitely are not holding the deer on that 1 acre piece. Those deer are going to be all over the place. But when they're on those 1 acre lots, those 10 acre lots and under, you're really just focusing on trying to hopefully have a pinch point on your property, a little funnel that those deer are traveling through that you can just set up. And a lot of those times, the deer are very used to people. I found personally hunting in Pennsylvania and around Pittsburgh, some of those areas behind cul-de-sacs and whatnot, the deer don't mind human scent or traffic quite as much as when you're out in the country a little more. So it can pose some challenges trying to even find deer on those 1 acre pieces, trying to get access to multiple 1 to 10 acre pieces so that you don't really burn one area out. But at the same time, the deer are used to seeing people all the time. They're coming into backyards, dealing with dogs and pets and kids in the backyard all day long. So they're a little more relaxed around the people I've found, but definitely poses some unique challenges there.
Sure does. And for the people that might not know, talk a little bit about your co-op program and how that works and why it works. And if somebody's interested in talking with you, how to get in touch with you.
Okay, so the cooperative program pretty much boils down to getting like-minded individuals together and managing a larger chunk of land than you have access to on your own. So if you and I both had access to 10-acre parcels of land or 100-acre parcels of land, whatever it might be, if we put both of ours together with this managing cooperative, we would agree not to shoot certain bucks or let certain age class deer pass, maybe put an antler restriction on the area personally that we're only holding ourselves accountable to. It doesn't give you access to hunt on my property. It doesn't give me access to hunt on your property, but it gives us a better chance at reaching and developing the habitat for the deer overall to keep them between our two properties, expanding on to try to get the most properties involved that we can. At QDMA, we also have a new initiative that we're trying to engage and get more cooperatives built in the next 5 years. So that's definitely a big push of ours. So if you want to find out more about building a cooperative or how to do that, you could contact myself directly at cslater@qdma.com, or my phone number, my business phone number is 724-816-0693. And if you're in my region, I can definitely help you get a cooperative developed or get started on that, answer any questions you have. You could also, if you're in any of the other regions, you can go ahead and call our home office and they'll get you hooked up with the regional director that's around you and that could help you out in your specific situation.
A lot of people ask me, hey, I want to be in the outdoor industry. And folks, as far as this guy's concerned, QDMA leads everybody in research and scientific data and people that are on the ground trying to make whitetails, bigger, stronger. But even more than that, they're trying to build a relationship between hunters. And so, saying all that, Corey, why don't you just give us a background about why you joined QDMA?
Growing up, I actually was very fortunate and lucky to have a few large tracts of land to hunt on, and the landowner was very not involved in QDMA as the organization, but followed quality deer management principles. He was heavily read on things like of that nature, and I was able to kind of mentor and learn from him. And as I got older, when I started getting to high school and was able to drive around to my own hunting spots and not have to be driven by an adult or mentored by an adult, I started doing a little bit of my own research. I would read all the time on just different whitetail habits and different studies that have just come out. And time after time, it was QDMA that was publishing these studies. So I became familiar with QDMA as an organization. I was reading a lot of the stuff that was coming out for them. When I was in college, I always wanted to be in the outdoor industry, but didn't quite know how to do it besides having a hunting show and being on television. Um, and that was not really attainable for me. So I went ahead and went into the teaching field because I like teaching and sharing knowledge with different people. I ended up moving out to Iowa to continue hunting. But while I was out in Iowa, I had a great time out there. Moved back to Pennsylvania to be around my family and my wife's family, and was at home one day just surfing QDMA's website and came across the position opening. And it had been a job that I'd looked at before, but one of the regions that were open when I got out of college was down south, kind of by their home office in Georgia. Nothing was up here by me or in Iowa, wherever I wanted to go to. So it was not right for me at that time. But when I moved back to Pennsylvania and Pittsburgh area, they were looking for a regional director out here, and I could not get on that interview quick enough. I couldn't get my resume submitted fast enough for that one because it's always been a dream job to kind of work with an organization that's so prominent in the industry and knows exactly what they're talking about and has so much knowledge. They probably have more knowledge stored and archived and filed than I'll ever even be able to read in my lifetime. So that was
That
an exciting.
Yeah, thanks for that. And QDMA is what, in 37, 38 states across the Midwest and a little bit in the West?
Right. Yeah. So you take right out. I think we just went over a map on a meeting we had the other day that kind of drew a red line straight up and down through the western part of Kansas, all the way up into Canada and down to the U.S. border. And it said that most everybody who is involved in QDMA or is most heavily involved in QDMA is east of that line. It runs a pretty good horseshoe around the Northeast and goes down to Florida, sort of sideways horseshoe like that through the Panhandle over to Alabama, and over into the side of Texas there. But we're missing a lot of people in the Midwestern states, and that is definitely a big focus for us to try to grow and establish a name for ourselves out there in the Midwest. I think they might know QDMA or quality deer management principles, but they might need a little more, or we would like to get them a little more information out there and just get some more ground on the or feet on the ground out there and grassroots sort of introduction out there.
Because I know in Colorado, Wyoming, Montana, all the way up there. I'm not familiar with the deer herd whitetails in New Mexico, but I know going across Idaho has a big deer herd. There's a lot of, I know people that hunt there. So you think about the whitetail, he began the Virginia whitetail, isn't that the correct, or Eastern whitetail? I forget. And I don't know the scientific name. But anyway, they just kept migrating or pioneering west and found the river drainages, and then all of a sudden they're, as you could say, they're everywhere.
Yep, that's what whitetail encompass the largest area across all the game species. They're the most hunted game species in North America, and it drives the hunting industry and it's the backbone of the hunting industry.
Well, you're in Pennsylvania, and what, almost a million people go out for your gun season.
Yeah, we are just under a million, um, and it is a very heavily hunted state. It's for the first time ever, actually, in 2015, if I'm quoting this right. In 2015, for the first time ever, Pennsylvania actually, the majority of our buck harvest were not year and a half old deer; they were actually older. So all years prior to 2015, the buck harvest in Pennsylvania has been predominantly year and a half old bucks. And then 2015 was the first year that had kind of evened out. It didn't drop a great deal, but it evened out with older age class bucks being harvested. So that was some promising information that just came out in the most recent report.
And that's good for everybody. And folks, if whatever you want to hunt or put on the ground, go ahead. It's your hunt, it's your deer. But the more you let people, and you've heard this before, let go and let grow, you're going to have 4.5, 3.5, 4.5, 5.5 year old deer. And it's exciting to see one of those bucks with that headgear come through the forest, right?
Oh yeah, it 100% is. I'll take that and run with it a little bit. When I was growing up, I was growing up in Pennsylvania, and pretty much every deer that I had harvested growing up was a 1.5 or 2.5 year old buck. I would say I would like to think they were 2.5 year old bucks. A couple of them might have been 1.5 year olds, but once I graduated and I got off to college and went to establish myself, first thing I wanted to do was move out to Iowa because that's what everyone hears, the land of the giants. That's where all the big bucks are shot every year. People talk about it all the time. It's in the media. So that is the epitome of whitetail hunting, and that's where I wanted to be. So I ended up moving and living out there for 2.5 years. and getting some good seasons put in over there. And if it wasn't for family back here in Pennsylvania, I'd probably still be out there.
Let's talk about why you think there's such large bucks in Iowa. All counties. You know, people get enamored with. I think it's zone what two below the zones below I-80. They get enamored with them, but I've hunted north of I-80 and did fairly well.
Yeah, so when I looked for jobs out there, I was enamored with that as well. South of I-80, that's all the school districts I applied in. But there's also good hunting north of I-80. You get up north of Des Moines right there. There's some pretty good bucks that are killed all the time on a consistent basis. And then even northeast Ohio is a giant big buck hotspot for sure. I think why these deer are getting so big, part of the reason is they have very good nutrition and they're eating literally what everybody feeds their cattle every single day. They're eating corn and they're eating beans for their entire livelihood. And these deer just have everything at their disposal that they can. Another thing they have on the deer side is not a million hunters like we have out here in Pennsylvania. I'm not sure the exact number of hunters out in Iowa, but from personal experience living there, the archery hunters there weren't very many of them in the region that I was living in, and the gun hunters went out for a very short season in the first gun season there. They would go out and just hunt hard that weekend. It's in essence, it's a long weekend. They would hunt hard then. Second season gun hunters would come out after that. It would be a little bit less of the numbers on that. And then there was really no more guns in the woods for the rest of the year. So you only had a 2 week period of gun hunters. Obviously late muzzleloader, but that's a different type of hunter that's out there, and it's not the predominant. Most everybody going out for gun season is when the most people are in the woods. But there is less hunters out there in Iowa, and they have it allows those deer to get by year after year and grow to that age class where they're supporting bigger bodies, bit larger antlers, and just reaching their maximum and genetic potential.
Why don't you share just a couple of thoughts or tips for people that are wanting to hunt mature bucks?
So when I was first starting to focus on mature deer, I really didn't know much. So definitely go over to QDMA's website, and there's plenty of information over there. This year, actually, I've adopted a new technique. I don't know if any of you have read about it or seen the talk in depth explanation. Go ahead and look that talk up by Ryan, because he presented down at the QDMA convention this year down in Louisiana, and that was one of the better talks that I had seen or heard in my entire life. I always thought thermals was for elk hunters. I always thought it was out in the western on the mountains with the big topography rolling around, but it affects it all over the country to a certain degree. And that, looking back, that's why a lot of the big mature deer that I was hunting, that's why they didn't show up when I thought they should show up, and why they would show up on the other side of the field instead of where they'd been coming out every single night next to my tree stand.
Thanks for that. And you know, you think about a young man at your age with a bright future. What do you think the whitetail future is? Just the future of the whitetail deer.
The future of the white-tailed deer is um, a little bit uncertain with the CWD talks that are going around right now, which is the biggest threat to it in this current day and age. Kip Adams was just out giving a presentation on chronic wasting disease in Michigan this past week, and he had a lot to say out there. But if you want to get really in depth and nitty gritty stuff, Lindsey Thomas and Kip Adams both have very good information on the future of white-tailed deer and where they're going to go, and they're very knowledgeable biologists, and they do a great job with that and know much more than they know more than I will ever be able to comprehend, I think.
Well, you got a few years to learn something. That's for sure. That's for sure. And when we look at QDMA, you know, I can remember early on, Kip was on the show, Hank was on the show, and Lindsey Thomas was on the show, and they all shared a little bit different. So your perspective, you shared some about the scientific, and you did the study, and you wanted to go to work for them, but share some other thoughts you have about QDMA and why people should consider becoming a member.
QDMA is definitely a very great and strong organization. As far as nonprofits go, we earned a 4-star, which is only the top 25% of nonprofits do that. The way you earn that is being transparent, letting people know where your funding goes, and also putting it towards actual research and actual implementing it, and not just wasting it all on corporate deals and people going on vacations, things like that, that some nonprofits have had the reputation of having. QDMA does not. They actually put, I think it was 97% of all funding, if I'm correct, goes towards either biology research, habitat development, enhancing the habitat on public lands, trying to gain access to it, voting for in hunters' favors for different bills that politicians are trying to pass. 97% of all funds actually go towards that. So you're really just buying a license every year isn't enough to conserve the hunting heritage and to protect our public lands and things like that. And QDMA is actually putting their money that you donate to them, putting it towards things like that, and developing. The biologists are studying all the different aspects and of the deer and how to make that better.
You're doing fine. You're
All right.
doing fine. So let's talk about the Dear Steward program, where people can go and spend a weekend with some pretty bright and shining people in the industry. I know Bill Winkie with people were up near his place. I think it was last summer sometime. So let's talk about Dear Steward ship program.
Okay, so Dear Steward, you can take Dear Steward 1, you can take that online, and it'll give you the basis of everything you need to know about whitetail, from aging deer on the hoof, just um, qual- a lot of the basic principles of quality deer management, how to effectively manage your property and enhance the environment and habitat, how to just it's a how to beginner's crash course on developing and managing for your deer herd. I'm actually currently enrolled in the Steward 1 course. I haven't gone through them before, but Deer Steward 1 is what I'm enrolled in right now. And then next summer, Deer Steward 2 involves an actual piece like that, like going to Bill's land, or the Heartland Bowhunter guys actually had people out to their land, I think last year or the year before. So Deer Steward 2 classes go out to farms and actually put their feet on the ground and get to see how things work a little bit more in depth. But it's a great learning tool. It's $200 if you're not a member of QDMA to enter Deer Steward 1, $175 if you are a member of QDMA. You want to take that class, and it's through the University of Clemson. So it's a good class to get enrolled in and get a solid base of knowledge under you.
Can I get some college credits for it?
I'm not sure on that, but check it out. See if your employer will pay for it, right?
Oh, we're having fun here, folks. But I know some people that have gone through Deer Steward 1, Deer Steward 2, and if you're a deer hunter, let me put it this way: one, I think membership in QDMA is $25, right?
Yes. So membership with QDMA is, I think it might be 30 $30, but I haven't actually been on that quite yet
Okay.
recently.
So anyway, so when you take the Deer Steward 1, you get $25 off. But the thing
Yeah,
is, the
yeah.
more you're knowledgeable, and here's the point I want to make, listeners: the more you're knowledgeable about the critter, your animal, deer you're hunting, the better hunter you are. But okay, so hunting's great, but then it's the overall view. How can I make my local neighborhood, my local community, a better place for all deer hunters? And that's where QDMA is so different than anybody else, because they are building community of deer hunters who really give a rip about the whitetail deer. Make sense?
Yep. So it is, you're spot on there. QDMA throughout their first 30 years had a mission of trying to get the information out to people on how to grow bigger deer and how to manage bigger deer. And for the most part, they have accomplished that goal. And pretty much everyone has the information out there. We're still going to continue to push that information out, but we're also trying to get more in touch with the roots of hunting right now. And that's one of the new initiatives that we have going on. So what we're talking about, that would be just, it's not all about the size of the deer that you shoot. And now it's more, you need to not forget and remember the people and the experiences that you had while you were trying to harvest that deer, or maybe the relationships you formed, and possibly taking a youth out to mentor them, or even an adult that has never been out to hunt before. going out to mentor them in the woods, and just knowing people and forming relationships is really what brings hunters together and has us all on the same page. So not everybody's going to have the chance to hunt 150-inch deer every year, but they can be out in the woods and they can be hunting and they can be forming memories that are going to last a lifetime.
Yeah, and to underscore that, this fall, matter of a month away, I'll be hunting with the same guy that I hunted with in 1966. That's 51 years of hunting. We're both alive. That's a flat out miracle. But you think about that, and that's how long the hunting relationship can be. And yeah, I went to college with him and all that, but we've been doing the same thing and hunting the same farm. That's the other thing. The farm's been in the family for that long.
That's pretty amazing to have something like that, a story to tell about that. I'm sure I would love to have seen some of the sights that you guys saw from the tree stands on that farm over those 51 years, and the things that you
Uh,
guys got to share.
well, we've taken them all down, but we actually built wooden stands. How do you build a wooden stand? You get some plywood and you get some 2x4s and you get a saw and you get some big nails, three penny nails, 5 penny nails, whatever, and you pound them into these trees and expect them to be there for, the next 10 years. Well, you and I both know trees grow. And so, we, they were death traps. I know some of them you get up and it had frosted or iced over and you almost slip off the wooden steps and stuff. It's just crazy. Oh yeah.
Uh-huh.
There was no safety, there's no safety harness,
Right,
you
right.
were just
That's
up
what
there.
I definitely have experienced those ones. I actually shot my first deer out of my first buck and my first doe out of wooden tree stands, and on the one wooden tree stand, I actually, when I was very young, had slipped and fallen when I was coming up halfway up the tree, slipped and fallen out of that. And that was there were no like safety lines back then that you're attached from the ground all the way up. And so luckily I wasn't all the way up at the top of the tree when I did slip off one of those frosty 2x4s. It was nailed into the side, but it was definitely have those memories to share with you.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about. We're telling campfire stories, and Corey and I in the warm up we're talking about. Oh, there's a buck over my shoulder there, and that came out of Iowa and had great brow tines, and I shot him. Was he a 150 buck? Nope, but he was so pretty that he's going to be on my wall forever. So and that's the story. Just like I just shared with Dick Rogers, myself, 51 years hunting the same farm. That to me is priceless as a hunter, and there's so much backfill on that, sitting around and playing cards, and having a beer or whatever. And, that's part of the tradition of Wisconsin 9-day gun season, but it's a tradition that everybody lives, whether they do it for 3 days or whatever, but they get together, they look forward to it, brings families together. And that's kind of cool, I think.
Yeah, it's definitely something a lot of people look forward to. I know I did every year going up to deer camp, and just you'd come back in after your morning hunt, you'd sit around the fire, someone would be cooking up back straps from the deer they got the day before, or they'd be sitting there cooking up, passing out some summer sausage they made from their archery deer, telling stories about hunting and where they had been that year and years past. As a young kid, I remember just sitting there and listening to all the adults talk and just could not believe some of the stories that some of them had. And yes, they were a lot of them exaggerated, but that's part of the fun of it. You just get to know people's personalities, and you get to know a little bit about everyone, and you share those long weekends where you're up at deer camp and just reminiscing over years past and what you're going there now.
And folks, that's pretty much what Corey and I wanted to share today. One about QDMA, two about his role out there in Region Two, and three, the whitetail tradition. So with that, Corey, if you want to give some shout outs, have at it, and then we're going to wrap the show.
All right. Yeah, so I definitely want to give a shout out to my wife. She's the one who has followed me out to Iowa to hunt deer, and then come back with me to Pennsylvania and let me take this job with QDMA, where I get to travel around the country and talk to people about deer. So she's very supportive in that, and I'm glad that I get to hunt with her every day of the season and go out with her as much as I can.
Well, with that, folks, I want to thank Corey Slater from QDMA for being a guest and giving us some insight of what QDMA is all about. So if somebody wants to join QDMA, what do they need to do, Corey?
You can hop right over to our website, qdma.com, And there's up in the top right-hand corner, there's a Join Me tab. It's one of the most simple organizations I've ever been a part of on how to join. You just click that, and it'll ask you for some credit card information. You'll get your quality whitetail issues mailed out directly to your house. There's also information there on which area of the country you live on. It'll give you a regional director like myself that can hook you up with a local branch in your area to get you actively involved in with QDMA and different organizations, fundraising opportunities and things like that in your area.
With that, Coach Slater, again, thank you so much for being a guest on Whitetail Rendezvous. And I'm sure my thousands and thousands of listeners across North America are going to pick up some nuggets here and find out a little bit more about QDMA.
All right. Thanks, Bruce.
I hope you guys enjoy the next episode as much as I did in taping it. And the interviews with Drew Fulsang of Outdoor Savage Company, and it's an internet e-commerce site. He sells a lot of apparel, logo merchandise. But even more than that, he loves to hunt whitetails, but I think he loves to hunt ducks even more. He hails from Georgia, and he does basically all his hunting along the Mississippi Flyway for ducks, and then in his local area for whitetails. And that's great, folks. And the outdoor life has treated him well. But when you hear his story, you're gonna kind of question yourself and check yourself out and ask yourself some hard questions. And Drew is upfront, personal, and all in of who he is, why he's where he is today, and the challenges he's overcome. That being said, Drew, I'm really excited you took the time to be on Whitetail Rendezvous.
Thanks for joining us. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, where you can listen and learn from the experts so you can be more successful on your next hunt. Until next time, listen, learn, and succeed.